No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, hope you're all having a great week. I hope you're all having a great time out in your gardens and you're getting a lot of gardening work done. I'm out here, we're working on a bunch of different things, getting some stuff cleaned up, but I'm getting to brew my very first batch of vermicompost tea now. The weather's warmed up nice enough. We've got it brewing. It should be done here probably this afternoon. And we'll start to get to feed our garden here. A nice little setup I've got here with a pump and a line here. We've got nice water. We can do a couple of buckets at a time. They just got a nice little air stone that's right down at the bottom there, as you can see. And we've got a bag of our worm castings. And yeah, just as simple as that. We brew it for about 24, 36 hours or so. And yeah, good stuff for your plants here. Get some onions. All right, everybody, let's get growing.
All right, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. Welcome to the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and we've got a really awesome show for you today. We've got a couple of really great guests here coming up in just a few minutes. We've got featuring today Resh Gala joining with us here just a little bit later in the show. And we've got Paul from Guten Gardening in our Are You Following Me segment here in just a few minutes. They'll be here, and thank them for joining with us here today for our show and joining us all for this conversation. Thank all of you for being here as well too. It's great to have you all here. And if you can, while we're at the top of the show, definitely click that like button, hit the thumbs up, as well as the subscribe button, the bell notification, as well as share with all of your friends out there. Let them know about the Let's Get Growing show. Let them know about all of these fantastic guests that we get to talk with here on the show every Saturday and Sunday here at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, right here on the Let's Get Growing show on the Urban Gardener channel. Also, big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching us on the replay. Thank you so much for being here on your time, checking out our great conversation here on the show. And if you can, get down in that comment section. Let me know you were here. Let me know what you've got growing on. Let me know if you got any suggestions. Let me know if there are any guests you'd like to see on the show for future episodes. Or if you just want to say hi, drop into the comment section below. I'd love to hear from all of you, as well as those of you who are here with us live right now. I love to see all those questions, comments, the discussion, everybody there in the conversation in the chat there as well too. And if you have any questions, especially for our guests, I love to hear questions for our guests when they come on here a little bit later on. Definitely put those in big capital letters so that I can see those questions separate from the regular conversation going on in the chat. And of course, follow all the links down below in the description of the show for all of our guests, and go and check out what they've got growing on their channels or their social media. Go check out one of their recent videos or posts and go leave them a comment. Let them know you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Again, I thank you everybody for doing that. I really appreciate it when you guys go there and show some love for all of these great guests that we get to see here each and every weekend on the show here. And yeah, right on. Hope you're all doing well. Hope everything's going and growing great for you. As you can see here, I got my baseball jersey on. It is, as everybody knows who watches this show, there's only a couple of other things besides gardening that I like as much as gardening, and baseball is one of them. Star Wars is probably the other one when it comes down to it. But I love some baseball when it comes down to it. I was just a big, huge fan since I was a little kid, a lifelong fan of my Seattle Mariners. So I always sport my jerseys on opening day weekend, and just wish. I mean, I live down here in Southern Oregon. I used to live in the Seattle area. I lived there for many, many years. So that was one of the things I got to do each and every summer, especially while my daughter was growing up. It was one of our favorite things to do during the summertime is we just catch a bus right downtown and we would go right to the baseball games and spend an afternoon together hanging out at the ballpark watching some fun baseball. And so it just really brings back a lot of great memories and all of that as well too. But I love some opening day weekend baseball, so celebrating that this weekend too. So again, got my baseball jersey on. Let me know, do you guys like baseball, or is there anything else or besides gardening that you're just really into, that you really enjoy? So let me know in the chat there too, if you've got anything that you really like as well. Maybe one of your favorite teams if you're a baseball fan, or maybe another sport or something as well too. Because I mean, I love gardening. Everybody knows I love gardening, but there's other things too that I know we enjoy as well. And again too, baseball also, really reflects a lot on gardening for me as well too. I mean, again, we always are looking forward to springtime. Springtime is when the baseball season's getting started. It's usually about the time we're starting to really anticipate the upcoming baseball season. Then I'm really all digging into like my seed catalogs and ordering my seeds and making sure I'm getting myself prepared and planning and thinking about my upcoming garden. So I mean, they kind of they kind of correlate with each other a lot too. So, and again, there's always that real anticipation of the upcoming gardening season, just as I have with the baseball season, and it kind of happens around the same time. And then there's those awesome summer days where you just get to hang out in the garden. You get to just caring for your plants and everything that you've been nurturing all the way through up until that point, and hanging out listening to cool baseball games, for me anyways. Just really, really great ways to spend the afternoon or the evening sometimes. A lot of evening games where I can just kind of hang out, listen to a game, and enjoy my garden space all at the same time too. So there's a lot of that baseball is also a big part of my connection with the garden space as well too. So I have a lot of that. And then again too, there's something I always talk about too when we get into fall as well, when it comes to gardening and baseball, is because maybe, and as you can tell, I'm wearing a Seattle Mariners jersey. My team is probably one of the one teams that, in fact, we've never been to the World Series. How about that? We're one of the only teams in major sports that's never been to their championship game. So, so being a fan of this team could be kind of, sometimes, like growing some things in the garden. Sometimes some things don't go very well. The season isn't the best that it can be. And that just happens sometimes. You know what I mean? And no matter what we do, or no matter how seasoned of a gardener we are too, sometimes, it just is that way. Some things just don't work out. And then so it comes around the fall time as the baseball season's winding down, our gardening season's winding down. We kind of reflecting back on some of those things that weren't very successful or whatever, and we can say to ourselves, there's always next year. And that's one of the great things I love about gardening and baseball too, as well too, is that it's we always got the next season. It may not have happened this season, but we've always got next season. And here's the great thing too, though, is if you are a fan of a lowly team like my Seattle Mariners as well, then you kind of know and understand that this is the way it works in baseball. A lot of times, it really is a sport of failure when it comes down to it. But gardening really isn't that way a lot of the time. There's things that do happen, but there's a lot of successes and there's a lot of things that we can really enjoy, and a lot of that sort of stuff that happen as well too in the garden. And I find that's one of the things I love probably about what really keeps me going with gardening, is being able to really enjoy my gardening spaces and my growing spaces as they're growing throughout the gardening season. So I hope I hope you all, again, are having a great time growing in your gardens as well too. And again, thank you all so much for being here with us today. I really, really appreciate all of you. Let's take a look and see who we've got joining with us. Of course, right here at the top of the show, we want to say hi to our good friend and facilitator of the show, Jay Dixon. Joining with us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Thank you, Jay, and thanks for all you do in our chat there, dropping in links and all of that as we're talking and conversating today. So everybody keep an eye out there in the conversation. Or again, if you do have small channels, this is something I want to keep a note of too here on our shows as well. If you have small channels or anything like that, and you're watching the show or anything, make a mention there. And I know Jay will jump in and get a link out there. We can do a little shout out for you as well too. We like to make sure that we're helping people connect with all of the great growers out there, and especially all of you who are spending your time hanging out with us here. So definitely shout out your name there for sure. And of course, we've got my good friend Adam Burley, our other moderator as well, joining with me from right up the road here in Central Point in Southern Oregon. So good to see you here with us, Adam. We also got Rob joining with us as well too. Rob's Allotment Gardening joining us from the UK there. Thanks to you, Rob, for being here. I see DLR 978. Dreary and gray. Oh wow. Oh wow. Southeast Minnesota today. Yeah. And we've actually, we kind of had a little bit of off and on rain that's come through, but they're just kind of like big clouds, and they just kind of drop a little bit and they move on. And so we've been having some really cool, nice sunny days as well too. Let's see. I see Bohemian Herbology in there. Awesome. Great to see you here. Jersey Girl, thanks for joining the show today. Right on. Let's see. Got Kevin, Zone 7, back again. Thanks, Kevin, for coming back. Great to see you here. Bettina joining us from Eastern Ontario. Awesome. Great to see our Canadians here in the chat as well, too. Girl Dad cooking up deliciousness. Awesome. Great to see you here. Thanks for joining with us. Excellent. Great to see everybody here. Let's see here. I'll work through our chat real quick here. See everybody's already talking. I see we got Paul's jumped in already too. Here he'll be coming up here just a couple minutes here from Guten Gardening. Awesome. Excellent, everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. It's awesome to see all of you. Like I said, got some great guests joining with us today. I hope you guys are also having a great time in your gardens and getting to grow a lot of great things and anticipating everything. Like I said, it's spring. Spring is finally sprung. So, all the anticipation we've had is now in the works in our garden space right now. So I hope you're all having a great time in the garden as well too. And Resh in the conversation too. Thank you for jumping in the conversation and saying hello to everybody there. Anna Jones, great to see you. Right on. And excellent. All right, everybody, we're going to get moving along today. Like I said, we've got a couple of really great guests here, so we want to get the conversation going here. And we'll be right back in just one moment. And we'll get to meet our first guest here, Paul from Guten Gardening.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. One application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop, here with another trivia question. Why is cauliflower white? A. Lack of sun exposure. B. It contains lutein. C. The sun bleaches it. Or D. It grows in nutrient-poor soil. We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
All right, all right, all right. You know the answer to Sarah's trivia question there. Drop it in the chat. Let us know what you think the answer is. And of course, Sarah will give us our answer here just a little bit later in the show in our next break. Yeah, lots and lots going on. Like I said, did you see the very beginning of the show there? At the very beginning, I showed a little clip of our compost tea. You know, we're finally getting to brew up some compost tea with some of the worm castings that I've been gathering up throughout the winter time. We got lots of great worm castings. That's one of the things I kind of did this weekend, or this last week anyways, my weekend during the middle of the week. But anyways, doing a lot of sifting. I was sifting out some compost. I got some really good sifted compost now for a lot of our plants and plant starts and different things that we've got going on out there. Got a lot of, again, sifted out a bunch of our worm castings and all of that. Got a lot of really great worm castings. So I fired up the compost tea brewer, and we're brewing up some compost tea and all of that to start feeding a lot of our plants as they're waking up out of the winter time and all of that and everything, for a lot of the other things growing around, and getting a lot of the garden work done. So again, I hope all of you are getting a chance to give us all a chance to get our gardens all straightened out and everything as well too. So anyways, thank you all so much for being here. It's time to hang out with our very first guest here. It's time for our Are You Following Me?
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right, all right. For our Are You Following Me this week, we have returning to the show back again, one of our guests from when we first got started with this show in our first year, Paul from Guten Gardening.
Hello,
Thanks
everybody.
For coming back and being back on the show. It's
Absolutely.
great to see you here.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Right on. Let's give you a minute or two. Reintroduce yourself to everybody. Let us all know about yourself and Guten Gardening.
Absolutely. I kind of think I should start off by saying that even though I'm a Red Sox fan, that's not the reason why the shirt I wear is red.
Oh, okay. Okay. Excellent.
It's just a coincidence.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Well, excellent. I love it. I love it. Red Sox fan. That's awesome.
There's a short period of time in between the end of a previous season and the beginning of baseball where it really depends on if you have anything that you like as to whether or not you're engaged. But I will introduce myself besides that point. But I'm Paul from Guten Gardening, and we've been trying to grow our channel for the last going on 5 years now. And our primary purpose of Guten Gardening has been and remains an educationally based channel where we're focusing on our learning. And as we learn and as we are able to continue growing and produce more of our own food, we're sharing that process with other people. So you get to see our mistakes, you get to see the things that work well for us or seem to work well for us. And we're in you could call it an urban setting. It's more of a suburban type setting, but basically we've taken the entire exterior of our property, which is about 1/10 of an acre, and that whole area around our house has become our garden. And that's what we're doing to grow as much of our own fruits and vegetables as we possibly can. And right before I came on here, I was up potting some of our seedlings and just getting things going outside as well. So that's a brief introduction.
Yeah, great time of year, right? I mean, it's just, we're getting outside for some of us, it's just, we kind of, I myself, is more so this last winter than a lot of other winters, but, just kind of let some things hang out and didn't bother with a lot of stuff. So, there's a lot of, getting the indoor planning going for the last several months, but now it's finally the weather's kind of starting to break. And now I feel like we got to be outside. We got to get outside. But then when you get outside, you're like, oh my, there's a lot to get done when you let things, when you let things kind of go a little bit there. So that's kind of what the week has been. A lot of catch up. Like I was just mentioning, we're sifting out compost and getting some things,
Sure.
amendments and stuff like that as we'll get the garden spaces prepared and get a lot of these seedlings that we've got growing and everything planted out in the coming weeks too. But yeah, what a fun time of year, right?
It's great. It's great. The blossoms. We have a lilac bush right out front. I don't have too many trees that aren't specific to fruit, but we have a lilac bush right out front, and it's already starting to. You see the blooms, or not the blooms, but starting to blossom a little bit, and I'm excited for that. It's nice to see. I got to be honest. The Zone 5 where we are here in Wisconsin wasn't as cold, wasn't as snowy as it's been, but still it feels nice to get out there and see a little bit of that warmth and a little bit of that growth.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So right on, let's talk about some of that growth. Let's talk about some of those things. So you mentioned, a little bit there about your garden space. Let's talk a little bit more about it. You say it's out and around the house. Kind of how big? It's nice, big, kind of like yard type of garden.
The one thing you don't pick a house, I guess, based on the
Right.
availability for garden space, or at least we didn't, I should say. But
Yeah.
in retrospect, there's no one area of our property that's really wide or really expansive, so you can get that traditional square rectangular garden shape. But in a way, it's
Yeah.
kind of what I like about our property is we've had to be really creative
Mm,
around the exterior. So
okay.
lots of different raised beds of different sizes.
Okay. Yeah.
Our main garden space is about 40 feet long and maybe about 7 feet wide at this point. But
Okay.
that's just, that's the main spot behind our house. But yeah, it's a whole mix of vertical gardening, container gardening around our patio, etc. But it's kind of cool. So
Yeah.
it's not
I love
boring.
it.
It's not
Yeah.
boring because you got to think of new ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things I love about it too, is the similar to what I've got growing and how we grow. We've got so many different types of spaces. And in some cases, I'm kind of fortunate because I've got several different types of these kind of unique spaces that we can use and utilize, where some people might only have like one or two or
Yeah.
those sort of, like patios, as you mentioned, or those sort of things. We got to be creative about what we're doing with those spaces. And again, I think it also makes gardening even a little bit more fun for those of us who do have more limited type spaces where we do have to be creative, because that just makes our gardens that much more interesting, because we've got to figure out how to use those spaces the best we can.
It's amazing what you can grow in. I mean, from bales of
Mhm.
hay or straw, whatever you want to use, to just the strangest little container that you can find. I mean, I think that's one of the cool things about gardening. And growing up, I didn't have that. I grew up. I spent the first 4 or 5 years on a farm, but my grandparents owned a farm for quite a few years, and it really was the traditional square on two sides of the house that I remember, where they had their corn, their beans, the staples. And I haven't had that since I was that age. Really, I haven't had that. We've lived in apartments, we've lived in all kinds of places, and we're fortunate enough now that, I mean, in my mind, the limited space we have is still a lot more than what we've had in the past, and so I really
Mhm.
can't complain about it. Um,
Yeah.
one bit, I really can't.
Yeah, and just and again, that's when you can grow and you can garden and you can, produce some of your own food, and even no matter how limited that is and what you're able to do, that's just empowering in itself. And those
Yes.
experiences, even with a small space garden, can be pretty profound in my mind when it comes down to it. So even if we're only able to grow a couple of things on a back patio or something like that, just, that's a pretty good garden as it is. And then again, if we're even more fortunate to have even more space to grow more things from that point on, is even better. But just being able to grow anything in any space is great when it comes down to
Yeah.
it.
And it is surprising the amount that you can get out of a
Mhm.
small space anyway.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that you're very well aware of and is the amount of time as you expand your garden, as you try to encompass or make the garden encompass more fruits, vegetables, etc. The amount of time that you're going to spend out there, and it's a great time, but it can be
Yeah.
quite a lot. And so I think that's important too, to keep in mind the amount of time you want to spend or have to
Yeah.
spend, knowing the
Exactly
more you
too.
grow, it's going to be there.
Yep.
But
That comes down to that, tip you hear from a lot of folks out there about, if you're just getting started gardening or just started growing, you want to kind of limit what you're doing, because our first instinct when we catch the gardening bug is to just grow anything and everything we can,
I'm going to grow all the things.
we're going to grow all exactly. And when it comes down to it, we also got to think about how much time do we really have to devote to all
Right.
of this sort of stuff. But really it is, there's so many benefits to gardening, and one of them too is just the again, as I was kind of mentioning, talking about baseball as well, as just getting to spend time in a garden, just kind of hanging out in a garden space can be really healthy for us. Just that
Yeah,
experience
absolutely.
of just being in a garden space. And that comes back down to size of a garden, because people are like, well, I don't have much space, I can't grow very much. Well, like, just get a couple of buckets out on a patio. That's really how I started, was on an apartment balcony. I mean, I could only grow a couple of things on this balcony, but it was such a great experience just growing in that little space, my own food, and having that garden space that I could go to, spend a bit of time and hang out and do some things in my off time that gave me a chance to kind of release or let go of a lot of whatever's going on in the day to day, right? Working a regular
Surely.
full-time job and that sort of stuff, and get to spend the evening maybe pruning or doing something in the garden or potting something up or whatever, can really be a great way to you know take care of and relieve yourself from a lot of those day-to-day things that we got to experience in our day-to-day lives, especially people who work full-time jobs and
Yeah.
full-time families even. Oh
Well,
man, it's just you need
this
an
might be
escape.
this may be a bit of a hot take, though. I would say when it comes to weeding, if you're weeding around
Oh,
your bushes at the
yeah.
end of that, it looks nice and that feels good. But when you're weeding around your vegetables and you're preserving them essentially to continue growth, there's something
Yeah,
really cathartic about that. That process
exactly.
of weeding is
Mm,
something
yeah.
special. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
you gotta
it's
save that for
frustrating.
those days.
But
Save that for
yes,
those days for sure.
get out there
Right?
and you have a garden of your vegetables laid out there that are in great shape, and you know they're going to keep growing because of what you just did, and you're going to get that food. And
Yeah.
I know that there's the name brand versus the knockoff, and sometimes it doesn't matter. But I think when it comes to gardening, I don't think you can over exaggerate the difference between the taste of what you've grown and the taste of what you purchased somewhere else. Even if it's organic somewhere else, I really don't think that could be oversold. I think there's such a substantial difference that you get
Yeah.
those first couple harvests of whatever it is, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And that's true. And again, I remember that as well. And And again, doesn't take much space, but again, it gives you a chance to be creative and have some fun with spaces as well too. Like I said, those are, some of the more interesting gardens. What we get to do with it, we come up with some ways to create vertical trellises. I've seen some really
Yes.
interesting creative things when it comes to that. So that's another part of the fun of urban gardening at that as well too.
Yeah, I was just talking about this in a recent video where I was talking about raised bed gardening and how you can go out. Right after I released the video, I went out to get something else at a local hardware store here, and they had these little tiny raised beds for about $170. These wooden raised beds, 130 bucks. And I was talking about how part of the enjoyment of coming up with solutions yourself too is some DIY stuff that comes out of there, like the trellising that you're talking about, or I mean, all of our raised beds here, except the two smallest ones, we've built. It's not been based on places. It's like the experimenting around, coming up with an idea of what you want something to look like, and that's part of the fun too. So then you're saying, I built this, I'm growing stuff in it. It's successful. It's fantastic. It's the shape I wanted. It's much less expensive sometimes. And I don't know, all of that rolls into the gardening experience, which is so enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, every time we look at it from almost all these different angles, it's just really, again, I can gush on and on and on about how much I really, really, really enjoy the experience of gardening and what it really does for us all too. Really when it comes down to it, not just the great food that we get to grow, but the experience itself and how, healthy it can be for us in all sorts of different ways. Again, so great. Again, and I, like I said, I love that you got a very similar type of garden space that I've got, where, we've got to be really creative what we do. What are some of the things that you're growing in your garden? Is there anything, maybe, in fact, let's start with like maybe something maybe new or something that you've been introducing to your garden recently, maybe in the last couple of seasons?
So, I mean, our primary, the staples. I love our winter squash. I love our potatoes and sweet potatoes. Those are always going to be staples. I am excited, actually. Probably in the next hour or so, our seed potatoes are going to be delivered here, and there's a new variety of seed potato. We did the Sharpo Mira last season, which is a phenomenal. We did the last 2 seasons, a phenomenal potato, and now there's a Sharpo Una that we're going to try out this season. And so it's a new variety, which in and of itself is, I guess, new in some ways to us. I'm also really excited to. I say excited. One of the vegetables we've struggled a lot with over the last couple of years, and we've had some years where it's phenomenal, some years where it's not, with some Brussels sprouts. And I love Brussels sprouts, but I think it's been our traveling. I think it's been just the wrong time of year when things have happened where I wasn't here to take care of something, and we just don't get results. And so I'm excited to try a few new varieties this season and reintroduce growing our Brussels sprouts. It's one of my favorite vegetables in terms of once it's prepared, so it's tough.
It's one of those ones that I was so surprised that I liked as much as I liked, because I think throughout most of my childhood, I had to resist anything of that sort, but when I finally had some good Brussels sprouts, I was hooked. And then similar to you, like you said, I've had a couple of decent seasons where if I keep the key for me where I grow and everything, it's just kind of keeping these things alive and away from a lot of the bug pressure throughout the summer season. And if I can get it through that summer season, then in the fall they just take off and they get going, and as it starts to cool, they form the big. And I've had a couple of decent seasons, but there's such a challenge. That when it comes down to it, is probably one of, and I would agree, for me, is probably one of the most challenging things I've grown in the garden from season to season. But I keep trying every year, though.
Yeah, I know. Last season I took a year off. I said to myself, not this year. But I have this. I have a video of it and a distinct memory of going out. It had just snowed, and I'm shaking off the snow, and I've got these massive Brussels sprouts on there that I'm bringing in, and they were just so tasty, and I want that back. So we're going to reintroduce it this season.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you just gotta keep them alive and good, and
Yep.
keep that pest pressure off of them. Again, too, good healthy soil is always the key. Make sure you're growing in
Oh,
some good
yes.
healthy soil.
Yeah,
And
for our brassicas,
yeah,
very important.
yeah. And if you can find a good, like, whether kind of like a good netting or something like that to keep off some of them. There are things like aphids and stuff that you're just gonna have to try to keep clean. And I find myself washing the heck out of them every time
Yeah.
as the aphids try getting on them and stuff. But yeah, it's just about protecting the pest pressure, and again, to heat pressure as well. If you're in some really warm areas, like we can get pretty warm during the summertime. So, I keep them in a nice shaded area of the garden during, the hottest point of the day, so that, so that I can keep them as protected as possible. But man, if you can do that, the reward of
Oh, yeah.
delicious, like you said, and especially if you can get them to the colder time when they can really get those
Oh, they
sugars pumping
sweeten up.
in there,
Oh, yeah.
and they sweeten up so much. Yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, just like a lot of our other vegetables, one of the things I like about them, you don't have to harvest them all at once. You get as many as you want for a meal. Let them stay on there, and I like that so much about. I'll say that too when we talk about the freshness aspect, the taste, etc. I mean that's one of the benefits. You run out, you get what you need. You let it
Yeah.
continue to grow, you get what you need, and you can't experience that. You can't experience that if you don't have a taste of growing your own food to the best of
Hmm.
your ability. So that's one of the highlights, I'll say. But
Yeah.
that's a big one for me. I wanna bring that back this year. See if we can make some improvements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, usually my next question is like what doesn't succeed, or what's one of the things you don't like gardening much or growing very much. And I almost think that Brussels sprouts fits that category in both
Or
directions,
both.
though, too. Because yeah, I mean, I do it every year, but some years I ask myself, why am I even going to try?
Yeah.
And then,
Um,
but then, you get the one good year, or you get the successful ones, and then you see, you know why at the end of the season, because they're so delicious. And especially, like you said, when you get the opportunity to grow your own too, versus store bought anything, growing your own just beats anything.
yeah, there's another thing I want to try. Actually, somebody I was talking to yesterday is also I want to try again, and I haven't grown this for a while, and that's cucamelons. I don't know if
Mm,
you've grown them or
yeah,
tried them,
I
but
haven't grown them. I haven't grown the cucamelon specifically, and yeah, they do look interesting. It would be fun
they're
to grow.
so good. The first
Yeah,
year I grew them, they were so plentiful. It's a tiny little vine that spreads everywhere, but so plentiful. I mean, like if you
yeah,
like cucumber, if you like the taste of a cucumber snack, there's nothing like it. The second year, I had no success at all. So that kind of hits this category. I want to bring cucamelons back as well. I know that's more of a snack. When I think of that, it's just more of a snack
right.
vegetable that you have, but definitely another one on the list for me.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I haven't got to try cucamelons. We did have on the show um recently Jay from the Cucumber Shop, and he was talking about, and he grows a lot of these different like exotic cucumbers and things, but he was talking about these melon varieties that he grows like cucumbers. So,
Okay.
and so you harvest them really young so that you can eat them fresh like a cucumber, like you would any other cucumber and everything. And so I'm interested in trying some varieties of those sort of things as
That's
well too.
very
So that
interesting.
yeah. So when I hear cucamelon too, it also makes me think of these things that we were talking about a couple weeks back with Jay. So yeah, definitely something to try as well too.
Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, and anything else you got growing on that you want to talk about? Guten Gardening. You got any projects, any sort of thing that you're doing this year, or you know,
Well, we're trying
just
out some new garlic varieties. Hopefully, they'll be popping up soon. I'm
okay,
experimenting
yeah.
around with a lot of new variety this year. Trying some new ways of growing sweet potatoes as well. I would say
Hmm.
we've had pretty good success, but we're working out working out some of that and hopefully talking about some of those bigger growing guides for some of these things based on our experiences. So that's going to be a large part of the work this season. And we are about to open up our community garden plot as well. So making a decision this year as to what we want to grow over there. There's lots of work going on behind the scenes. And I'm just excited to get everything going. I'm excited for the warm weather to be consistent.
Exactly. Yeah, it's again, like I said, it's one of those, or more so this year than more previous years, where I've just kind of really resisted going out in the cold, and I'm just like, and like I said, everything's been hanging on and waiting for these warmer days. Like you said, I need consistent warm days, and then I can just get things done and get a lot put in a day. But you don't get much done when it's all wet and rainy and cold.
Right. I mean, can't get out there. Can't get out there right now, walking around and pulling mud up all over my. But not too long in the not too distant future. I think we're going to be in good shape. And in the meantime, all the seed starting and everything else I've got going on, that's keeping me plenty busy. So.
Yeah, I've got tons of stuff here indoors. We're transplanting. I was up potting pepper seedlings this week. We've got tomato seedlings that are all coming up and everything. All of our other sort of summer crop things that we're getting planned out and ready to go. As far as, again, like you said, more consistent warm days. The soil temperatures starting to rise outdoors. So we got a lot of things that are now, like you said, it's going to start happening quick and fast. We got a lot to get going and a lot to get going on, so that we can make sure that we're, optimizing our growing spaces so that we can grow as much of our own food as we possibly can. And again, such a great time of year. And like I said, real quick here before I let you go, do you have any last things you want to mention to everybody? Let everybody know where they can find you, all of that. Sure. And again, too, I'll let everybody know where they can find you. Actually, I can do that because that's right down below in the description. There's a link right there. But definitely give you a moment here to let everybody know what's going on again with Guten Gardening and what's coming up this growing season.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, we're trying some new varieties of potatoes, sweet potatoes. I mean, that's my obsession. It's been my obsession since we started gardening, but we have some new varieties this season. We're going to actually, once the seed potatoes get here, I'm going to do a nice little unboxing. So that's coming up. But more than anything else, we're just going to be talking garden prep over the next couple of videos and moving into what it looks like to transition from the deadness that's out there right now into what I hope to see is a beautiful blooming garden that, again, we're limited in what we can expand to, but we're still trying new things, new ways of gardening every single season. And so I'm excited for that. I'm excited to share that and share our successes and challenges with our community. And I really appreciate being here with the community who I don't often get to talk to. So I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely, Paul. It's always great to have you here. And like I was mentioning to you before we got started with the show, we've got hopefully some more opportunities down the road to get you back on. And again, like you said, it's one of the best things about getting to do all of this sort of stuff and creating our channels and sharing our gardening experiences and all of that is the community that we get to build around us and everything. So for a lot of us who do, these YouTube channels and social media and that sort of stuff, again, it's also another exciting part of this growing season coming up is getting to share that with all of the folks who follow us as well too. So again, if you don't follow Paul yet and you haven't had a chance to check out Guten Gardening, we got the link right down below, like I said, in the description. Go over there and check out one of Paul's recent videos and leave him a comment. Let him know you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show, and hopefully we'll get to see him back here again real soon. Thanks again, Paul, for spending your time today. It's so great to catch up with you. And again, like I said, we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You betcha. Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is A. As cauliflower heads develop, they're encased by large leaves that help to shade them from the sun. Sometimes farmers will also gather the large outer leaves around the heads for added protection. The result? Cauliflower heads never develop chlorophyll pigmentation, and this keeps them a nice creamy white color. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
All right, all right. Excellent, excellent. Did you get the answer to Sarah's trivia question? And I'm sorry, and this was during the first break, and probably one of the things I was a little, I do most of the show prep and get things together before the show, and I was really kind of pushing to get things done. And I actually got our garden terminology segment there flipped, and because I wanted it, the first one, if you noticed, was almost basically the answer to the question because we were talking about blanching in the first segment, and I meant to have that during this one for the answer part of the segment, and because that's what we basically was kind of the answer there. So I don't know if anybody noticed that really, but I basically gave the answer to the question in the first break before she actually asked the question to our trivia. And one of the possibilities too, again, this was the thing about getting that together and only seeing that right before the show, is the second part of the second possible answer that she gave there had included lutein. That I don't even know if I spelled it right. I don't even know what it was. I'm gonna have to ask Sarah about this later on. And so I just kind of threw it in there because it was there. I don't know. And I saw a bunch of people in the chat talking about that, asking about that. I think a few people even tried to research something there. I didn't get enough time to really dig in and figure that out or anything. So we're just gonna kind of let that sit as it is. But I'll ask Sarah about that later, and maybe we'll get a little bit more clarification or something. But yeah, again, too, I don't know the answers to all of this sort of stuff, when it comes down to it, or about all of the possible answers anyways sometimes. But anyways, that's that when it comes to the trivia question. I hope you got the answer anyways. Yeah, Lady Gallery says, Sarah sometimes likes to be tricky. Yeah, well, I know. And I was like, oh, I wish she really would have included just a little bit more explanation when it comes to, kind of words like that, too. I did try to do a quick little Google search, and I'm sure a lot of other folks did as well, too. And I just didn't find anything. So I was like, well, I'm just going to have to let it be as it is. But again, really fun. And thanks to Sarah, anyways, for taking her time to do that for our show and put together those trivia questions for us each week. And again, like I said, go and check her out at sarahseedshop.com, where she's got lots of great essential garden seeds, all great organic, non-GMO heirloom seeds, essentials that are really great for your garden. And again, too, and no matter what anybody else says out there and what all of that, it is literally the best value and bargain you'll find for garden seeds out there. So definitely go and check that out and get some of those garden seeds if you still need to get some. If you can. Jay says Loden or whatever doesn't seem to have a meeting. Yeah, I don't know what I'm not even sure. So again, I'll have to find out what she was talking about there, and maybe we she got the pronunciation, or there's just something lost in the translation there for sure, possibly, when it comes down to it. Oh yeah, anyways, right on, time to get moving on. we got a great another guest here that we got to talk with here. Been really looking forward to this conversation ever since I saw her on one of our good friends' podcasts just recently. Everybody knows we like to go hang out with our friends over at the Garden Party podcast. Destin from Texas Garden Guy, and Phil from Phil's Figs, Des from Gardening with Des, and all of them are actually going to be with us on our next Sunday roundtable show. Not this Sunday, but next week's roundtable. So I want to mention that as well too. But yeah, let's get to meet our featured guest today.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right. And for today's featured guest, we have joining us on the show, Resh Gala from @Resh Gala. I follow you mostly on Instagram. Is that like your main place where people can follow you there?
Yes, that is my main place where people can find me. And first of all, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So,
Oh, yes. Excellent.
backdrop, it's so inviting.
Oh, yes, that's wonderful. And yes, again, too, I love following along with what you do with your garden. And I'm sure lots of people do. You're really popular on Instagram and you share lots of really great things, on your social media there. And again, too, if you haven't, everybody had a chance to check out Resh, I did put a link down below in our description for you as well, too. But let me give you a minute or two. Introduce yourself to everybody. Let us know about yourself. Let us know a little bit about what you share there over at your page there.
Sure. So my name is Resh Gala.
Resh. Okay, sorry.
No, you're right. You're totally correct on that. You're spot on. So my name is Resh. And I'm an organic garden designer based in New Jersey, growing zone 7A. It used to be 6B until USDA changed it. So now I'm growing zone 7A. And my company is called 100 Tomatoes. And we design and install edible organic gardens in raised beds for our clients here in New Jersey, parts of Pennsylvania, as well as parts of New York City as well. So that's primarily what we do. And apart from that, I'm also the author of Vegetable Gardening Made Easy, which got published last year. So if you're looking for some easy gardening tips and tricks, then do check out my book as well. And then primarily I'm on social media. You can primarily find me on Instagram, where I post lots of gardening tips, inspiration, and behind the scenes of my garden installations as well.
Yeah, lots of really great stuff. I love it. The tomatoes, again, my tomatoes are just starting to pop up, so I'm really excited about the tomato growing season coming up. And again, too, and I think maybe Jay might here, in fact, if we get her to drop in a link for your book as well, too, into the chat there, and then I'll maybe look to get one in the description here just a little bit later as well. But you can find that through the link, I'm sure, if you want to get a hold of that book too. But lots of great things going on. So let's talk a little bit about your garden story. Where did all of this get started for you? What's your growing story? Were you a young kid and getting to hang out with the family in the garden, or is this something that you came into later on in life as well too?
It is so interesting. I think most people ended up having a passion for gardening because they grew up, planting a seed or gardening with, say, their grandparents or with their mom and dad, things like that. But for me, there was no such thing. I actually grew up in India. And for me, I would say I've been in New Jersey for like over 20 years now in US. And I would say about 6-7 years ago is, when I got the gardening bug. And just like most average gardeners, or wannabe gardeners, I want to say that, wannabe gardeners, not gardeners. So, you go in spring and you see in these garden centers all these beautiful displays of plants and veggies, basil, and everything looks gorgeous. And I was tempted just like anybody else. And I said, you know what, I'm going to pick up 2 tomato plants and grow it. And I knew nothing about gardening. I didn't even take them out of that small pot and put it in a larger container. Never did.
Yes.
Put my shaded deck. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
obviously, like you would know that nothing grew, and I was so did. I could not believe it'd be so hard. All that grew were 2 tomatoes with blossom end rot, literally. And I was just shocked. I said, how can it be so hard when eating food is so easy, right?
Yeah.
So I think all of us as people in general, we often are at these crossroads in our life where we can make a decision where we say, you know what, something didn't work out, let's give up and try something else. Or we say, let's, pursue this further and dig a little deeper and try,
Yes.
how we can do this better. So I did not give up, which I'm so grateful that I didn't. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't have a green thumb, and so forget
Yeah.
about it. But that is actually not true. It's about doing something consistently, and that's when you get better at it.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know,
I mean, because I say that, no, I
sounds
say that all the time. I tell people, that's the a brown thumb is really a myth when it comes
yeah,
down to it. Everybody has a green thumb inside them. It's just you got to just take the time to access it. To
exactly.
give it an opportunity to come out of you when it comes down to it. And that might mean killing off a bunch of plants in order to get there.
Exactly.
Just diving into the experience. Like you said, grab a couple of tomato plants, put them in a shaded spot on a balcony that doesn't get any sun, and have that experience. But don't give up because you didn't get anything. Just know that was a learning opportunity to
Absolutely.
get those great tomatoes you're going to get in your upcoming season.
Exactly. So the first year was a complete failure, but the next year, then I hired a landscaper. And you would think that landscapers, because they add the mulch and they prune, your garden, or they mow your lawn, that they would know more about gardening that you would. So I hired a
Yeah.
landscaper. I had him build really 4 very small, like 2 feet by 3 feet raised beds for me, just 4 of those. And I went in and I planted all the plants again that year, and nothing grew, and all the pests came into the garden. Like
Yeah.
literally, I can recognize. I don't want to say all the pests, but a lot of pests, I would say, in the
Oh,
vegetable garden.
yeah.
Because they came, because I guess the soil that he put in was like construction quality. It was
Mm,
gray in color, had rocks in it. And
yeah.
I didn't know better at that time. I thought, okay, it was, raised beds or sunlight, and that'll help. But I guess the soil was really so important.
Yeah.
So, I did a lot more research. And of course, we have YouTube University these days, right?
Perfect. Isn't it
Where we
great?
the answers.
Love
Exactly.
it.
So I quickly realized that the key really was healthy soil for a healthy garden. And so first thing that I did was buy myself a small composting bin, like a tumbling style composter. And I started composting. I got a compost starter and started adding my kitchen scraps, things like that. And the first time that I changed out my soil, added this compost, it was literally like a shift, like night and everything got so much easier, so much better. And then you have a sign, you get a list, you feel like, I want to keep doing this. That's all
Yeah,
you need is one small win, you grab onto it, and then you go with it. So that
exactly.
was really my journey. So it started there with failure to grow tomatoes, which is why I named my company 100 Tomatoes, because I went
Yes.
from 0 to 100 one year.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, so that's how it kind of started.
I like that. That's a great way to come up with a name too. Perfect. Yeah, and again too, that's a big lesson to learn though too as well at the very beginning, because we think, a lot that we're growing these plants, so
Mhm.
we put a lot of attention to the plants themselves. But
Yeah.
really one of the very first big keys we got to figure out is our soil. And especially those of us who are building raised beds and different things where we've got to put those soils as inputs versus soil that we've already got that we would condition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got to also make sure and understand that, it's not necessarily going to be that first year or anything that we're going to get that real great success out of our soil, because it's got to build up that microbiology, you got to build up that soil health, and then that's when those plants that we're caring for are really going to take off. So a lot of people find also that being the next thing, you know, where they start thinking, oh, I can't grow anything, because they've tried one thing, then they try it in some new soil that they put together in a new raised bed, and then it's not as successful, and they're like, oh, what's going on? And then it's like, no, give it one more season. Now you got the great start, one more season, and then your soil is going to be great. Because then what you're seeing with that poor soil, like you said, is the one thing that I think really pushes a lot of people away, really, when it comes down to it, is those pests. And there's so many to learn in the garden too, aren't there?
There are so many, yeah. I mean, there are so many pests, but I think gardening is, it's a journey. And so you go step by step. It's like climbing up a ladder almost. You start with the basics. You start small, and then you keep
Mhm.
adding and growing things that you've never grown before. Or even if it's a tomato, you try a new variety, and that's how you continue the excitement, continue the learning, and basically having fun.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly, and as long as we can, and sometimes people are just coming to all of this themselves, and they're finding the community later and all that, but if there's any way we can talk to people who are just getting into gardening, it's always, I think, my first bit of advice is just don't let any of the things that aren't a success. I don't like saying failure much, you know what I mean? But things that aren't successful, uh, keep you away, because those are things are to be expected in your first couple of seasons, and that's to be expected in learning any new type of thing that you might want to learn out there anyways. Is that we got to account for our learning curve.
Yeah. And the other thing is that every year, every season is different. So
Mhm.
just because one year you had great success with tomatoes, the next year may not be a tomato year, but it could be a
Yeah.
great year for your cucumbers, for example.
Right.
And so I always encourage people, instead of growing just one thing, to grow a variety of different things. It's sort of like hedging your bets. So if one thing doesn't work out, you always have something else, which makes you feel satisfied as a gardener. And
Yes.
I think that's super important. And one of the other things I encourage a lot of people to do is find local gardening clubs, or even
Mhm.
community gardens to be part of, an allotment, things like that. So you can meet other gardeners, learn from them, see what they're growing, and it helps, create that camaraderie as well. So, gardening really brings us together.
Yes, it does. And fantastic tip, Resh. I totally agree with this. This is something I talk about a lot, is that again, and you mentioned YouTube University, Insta gardeners,
Yeah.
TikTok gardeners, people that are out there, so many wonderful people sharing their gardening experiences with us. And I love following each and every one of them. But when it really comes down to it, you want to know and learn how to grow your best garden. You want to get local. You
Yes.
want to find these garden groups that are around you, garden clubs, to find them at your, like you said, community gardens. This is such, again, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is such a big point when it comes to finding great success in our gardens, is learning from people who are gardening in the areas we're growing in.
Yeah.
Because it's gardening is really environmental when it comes down to it. It's about your microclimate. It's about, the space that you're growing in, and people who have been growing nearest you
Yeah.
for years are those people who really know how to really grow some of the best gardens, or at least help you grow some of your best gardens.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about that a lot more lately. Is again too, we're here again. It's at the top of the screen. All of our shows. We're growing community through gardening. The community is probably one of the best communities out there. I love the gardening community when it comes down to it. But as we get the opportunities online, to gather together through, say, our show or your channel, or in different places that we get to do that, it's really also best for us to really connect locally with the folks around us who are gardening too, so that again too, not just so we can learn to grow our best gardens from some of these experienced gardeners around us, but also just to have again too that connection with people who share a shared interest like you have, because again, we all know what it's like, when we're gardeners and we're around, say, a family group somewhere, or we're around another work group somewhere, and we just start wanting to talk about our tomatoes, and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, here he is going on about his tomatoes again.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I've heard that a lot. That all you talk about is gardening, and all you talk about is aphids. But yeah, I think it's super important to be part of like a community garden or a garden club. And one of the things that I like to do, because I have a love of tomatoes, and I think tomatoes are, generally speaking, considered the holy grail, I would say, of gardening in terms of vegetable gardening. I mean, even though it's a fruit. But every summer, I like to host a tomato tasting party where I invite my friends over, and I put together this platter of all the different types of tomatoes I've grown. So it could be like a Midnight Roma, Dr. Vichy's tomato, green German giant tomato, for example. Even the cherry tomatoes, you have the sun golds or the black cherry. So make a complete platter of tomatoes. And then I have Cheeto peppers that I roast and grill from my garden, and invite all my friends over, and they choose the tomato they want to have, and they taste it, and I have them rate and rank which one is their favorite, and it becomes a fun social event as well, just to share all the things that you've grown from your garden.
Yes, I love it. And oh man, the tomato tastings. I used to do some. I got to get back into doing that again. I'm going to grow some good varieties this year, so maybe we'll do that. Like have a nice, fun tomato tasting video for later in the season. But we have like a cool event they do at our farmers market each year. That's very similar to what you're talking about, where they'll lay out a bunch of those, just all these different varieties of delicious tomatoes, and there's just nothing better than getting to try all these just wonderful varieties. And again too, like you're saying, tomatoes are like that really great thing. Like everybody, like I mean, when I got gardening, I started with a cucumber, right? And it just so happened to be that's what someone gave me, was this cucumber start. So that's how I started my food gardening experience. But immediately I went to tomatoes, and I think most gardeners do. And I like that you're mentioning like they're also a fruit. I like the saying where they say, what is it, that knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
That's a really good one.
So that's
epic.
Exactly. But there is that point. Yeah, exactly. Tomatoes are a fruit, not a vegetable, but they're part of our vegetable gardening and all that, whatever. But I love tomatoes. And again, too, similar to my love for peppers as well. You mentioned peppers. I love growing lots of peppers. And it really is, I think, the next thing that really gets gardeners, once they start finding those first successes that we were talking about, that they get, is that when they start discovering variety.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Is now this thing is like, okay, well, you as well too, because it's similar, as I didn't discover vegetable gardening until later in my adult life as well too. So for me, when I first started vegetable gardening and growing my own food, that was the big thing, was like, oh wow, there are all of these different types of tomatoes. Really? You know what I mean? I'm just used to the ones I see at the market, or whatever, or the peppers, all these varieties. There's hundreds of varieties. There's all of these different flavors and shapes and colors and all of this sort of stuff. And I think that's really one of the other things that just really gets us going, right?
Oh my gosh.
Is the variety that we start finding.
The varieties, let me tell you, the worst thing about that is then you start having a massive seed collection. I mean, that is the problem. That once you start gardening, it isn't just about the plants and the garden and the soil, but it's about, amassing a huge seed collection as such. So it's crazy. I started off with one of those photo boxes from Michael's that I got, where I store all my seeds. And now I think I have 5 suitcases. That's what I call them, my seed suitcases. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. The seed collections. And that's where you start, because again, too, it comes down to this sort of thing we were mentioning even with Paul earlier, is that, you get started gardening and then it just becomes, I want to grow everything. I want to grow it all.
Yeah.
So then that becomes the seed catalogs, and now we're ordering all these different varieties and
And then
seeds, and our
expanding
seed
your
collection
garden.
becomes so big. It's like now I really have to be very selective in what I grow each year and go through my seed collection. Like, okay, well, I want to grow them all, but I can't,
Yeah.
but
And then
it's
you
great
start,
to have
and
that
then you,
variety.
yeah, and then you start wanting a
Yeah.
bigger garden or a
Yeah.
farm, and then come the
Exactly.
chickens, and then it goes from
Yeah.
there, and then you're suddenly a homesteader.
It is, and I'm hopefully on my way there now. I've got a new owner in the space that I live in now too, which means I can expand and start doing things. You mentioned chickens and all this other sort of stuff, which are things I've been wanting to do for years, but I haven't had the right type of permission to be able to do that until now recently. So hopefully that'll be a project we get done this year. But like you said, it does. It just moves into this next thing that I for a time there as well too thought, before I even got into YouTube and sharing and doing all of this, was to become a market gardener. I thought, once I got into growing all these different things, I was like, oh wow, well now I want to become a farmer, like you said, and maybe have a market garden and go and have a little table at the local farmers market or something. So that was
Yeah.
an idea for a while. But again, too, we start thinking about all this sort of stuff when we start
Yeah.
learning how to really find those successes and growing food, because it really is just it's a big like discovery for
Yeah.
ourselves when we learn that we can do this and actually grow food.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all starts with two tomato plants, right? And then it
Yeah,
ends up into this big hobby, passion, so to speak. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so right on. So here we are. You're discovering, you're doing all this sort of stuff. Let's talk about your garden spaces and stuff. You say that you're growing in New Jersey, is that right?
Correct. So I'm growing in New Jersey, and that's where I'm based. And I just recently moved into a new home a couple of months ago. So I don't
Okay.
have my new garden out here yet, but my
Oh,
old garden that I had was just 84 square feet. And so you
right.
learn, like, when you want to grow all that food, but you have a restricted amount of space, you have to
Hmm.
get creative on how to adopt techniques like
Yep.
vertical gardening, growing in layers,
Yep.
using trellises and plant supports really creatively in order to maximize the food production from a small space. So I've been growing all these years in my backyard garden, as well as at the local community garden at Duke
Mm,
Farms as
yep.
well, where I learned a lot from that garden also. And now what I do is I design and create gardens for all my clients. So I guide them and I coach them, but also, we have a whole team of people at my company with, carpenters who build the raised beds custom for our clients. We stain them in these beautiful colors, add these gorgeous trellises, and, we work with our clients to grow the plants that and the food that they want to grow for the right season, because a lot of people have this aspiration when, like you said, they want to grow everything.
Hmm.
And the thing is also that you have to grow with the right season. And here in
Yeah.
New Jersey, we have, of course, spring and fall, which are wonderful times to grow. We also have summer. And a lot of people don't realize is that by using just small, simple techniques like having hoops and, like, say, 6 mil farm grade plastic to cover some of their cool season veggies, you can extend the growing season from 5 months to 10 months in New Jersey. So
Yeah.
we design a lot of gardens and help local aspiring gardeners to extend their growing seasons as well, to grow
Yeah.
what we didn't think was possible.
I love that idea, is being able to do that as a business, and especially as you're talking about having the fact that you're already so kind of limited in your own space, So now here you get to go help other people create their spaces. So they also are kind of your spaces too. So you kind
Yeah.
of get that connection with all these other ones as well as the community garden that, I think that's really awesome as well that you're doing that too. Real quick here, I do want to mention to everybody that we do love to get some questions from all of you here. I know I see all of you in the chat chatting with each other and everything, but if you have a question for Resh, drop it into the chat there in nice big bold capital letters, and I'd love to share your questions with her as well too. I saw Bowtie was in here earlier with this one too, so I marked it, but let's see here. The photography on your site is amazing. Do you do it all yourself? And he's just mentioned his daughter-in-law is an Instagrammer and artist and is good in photography too. But yeah, lots of great garden photography.
So I take a lot, I would say majority of the photographs and the videos, I take them myself. Sometimes I do have my kids help me a little bit. I have
Yes,
to guide them.
exactly.
So yeah, help me out occasionally. And just recently, as of last year, I got introduced by a friend at the gym who introduced me to one of her friends, this wonderful retired couple. And so they were like, Resh, we'd love to, help take some, professional pictures of some of your garden installations for you. In exchange, if you would please, help us with our garden. So I said, deal. And
Yes.
so they've been so wonderful. And they're actually good friends of mine now. So they helped me take some of the professional pictures that are part of my website, on my portfolio.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah. Lots and like he says, lots of great photography at your site there as well
Thank
too.
you.
Love it. And Dealer 978 was like, I'd like to learn or more examples of gardening in layers. This is a real key to small space gardening, right? Is just making sure you're kind of putting your plants in so that they're kind of leveled out in different levels, right? You want to talk about that just a little bit more?
I'd love to share about that. So I think gardening in layers, when we talk about flower gardening, for example, you might have heard the term thriller, spiller, fillers. You might have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we use a similar concept, but transfer it into your vegetable gardening. So, for example, you have the tall plants, such as your tomatoes, things that are growing on trellises, your cucumbers, sugar snap peas, even cantaloupe melons, for example, which are considered tall plants. And so you grow the tall plants right in the center of your raised beds. Or if you have a narrow raised bed, which is against some sort of a wall, then you grow them all the way at the back. And then the second layer, which is the medium-sized plants, such as your peppers and eggplants or your basil, those would grow on the second layer right in front of your tomatoes. And then the shortest plants would be used as ground cover almost. Your lettuces, your cilantro, your spinach, your radishes. I often grow them. In fact, I even grow cilantro in summer under the shade of my tomato plants. So those are the three layers, the tall, medium, and short plants that you grow that way, so you maximize your space, so nothing is being wasted. And a lot of times I like to grow trailing plants that spill over the raised beds in the corners of my raised beds. So for example, I'll have like prostate rosemary spilling over, or even a watermelon spilling over, or over the ledge of the raised beds. So you maximize space and you pack in as much as possible. And so
Yeah.
how you grow in layers by using the short crops to grow in the shade of the larger crops. And so when you combine that a little bit, and you learn as you grow, but that's a phenomenal technique of really packing in the gardens, and which is why a lot of my gardens, is you can see in my book, they're like super duper packed.
Yes.
With so yeah. And you grow a variety, so the pests don't attack just the one plant. You have lots of herbs, for pest control, for natural pest control as well. You have like rosemary, nasturtiums, things like that, that can deter a lot of the bad bugs.
Yes, exactly. And like you said, when it comes to having smaller spaces and all of that, layering really is a huge key to be able to maximize your space. And like you said, making sure that you're utilizing also the plants themselves, but sometimes you got a fence or something like that that's creating some sort of level of shade, right? So a taller plant in the upper part, and then work your way down in layers to work down those shade that's created by, say, walls and fences and things as well too.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Yeah. So you have to use the space that you have to grow the
Hmm.
plants that grow best in those conditions. So there are a lot of crops that can grow in the shade. There are, of course, your sun-loving crops like your fruiting vegetables, your tomatoes, cucumbers, but a lot of the herbs and leafy greens, they can tolerate, shade and can grow with just, say 4 hours of sunlight. And so you have to, understand those things as well, the impact of sunlight and the choice of crops in order to maximize production from your garden.
Yeah, yeah. And again, too, it's great. We got having this conversation also with Paul earlier too. I didn't realize I had two real small space gardeners on the show today. So that really energizes my conversation too, because I love talking about this sort of stuff. Because again, more and more people are limited in the spaces that they have and in different living conditions and situations, and I think it's real important to show people that there are lots of different ways that we can find, even in very limited spaces, to grow even just a few things. As I mentioned earlier, that was a big thing for me. I just only had a couple of things I got to grow, but that was
Yeah.
huge in my gardening experience or my growing and learning experience was, just getting started and growing where I was at, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But showing people how you can maximize and use spaces they wouldn't normally think would work for them is really important to getting more gardeners out there.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest myths actually in gardening is that, especially for beginner gardeners, a lot of them they have empty spaces in their garden because they follow this plant spacing rules that are
Mhm.
behind the seed packets. And so I know it
Yeah.
sounds controversial almost, but I often tell people to avoid following the plant spacing rules that are
Yeah.
behind the seed packets because a lot of them are meant for in-ground gardeners,
Right.
and not so much for people who grow in containers or raised beds. So when you're growing in like raised beds, I think you can pack in the plants because you don't need that much of space for like you who needs 18 inches in terms
Right.
of rows
In
for
between.
if
Yeah.
you grow carrots. You don't need like 12 to 18 inches
Hmm.
of growth space if you're growing in a raised bed because you're not really going to be walking in those pathways. So I think there's a big myth out there that you should
Yeah.
follow the plant spacing rules, but if you
Yeah.
forget those and you adopt, even square foot gardening is a great
That's what I was
place
going
to
to say
start.
is a good,
Yeah,
that's a good place to start for
exactly.
those
It's
who
a
want
great
to.
place to start if you're a beginner gardener. But yeah, but to basically pack in the plants as much as
Mhm.
possible, grow a variety so that you can, and of course add a lot of herbs and flowers for pest control. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, if you pack in a lot of plants, you might feel like you have more pest pressure because you don't know how to prune your vegetables, for example. But if you add in all those herbs that have the smells like rosemary and thyme and basil, even marigolds,
Mhm.
cosmos and zinnias to attract the beneficial insects and the pollinators, suddenly you're creating this beautiful and very productive ecosystem where things are thriving. So I think when in doubt, I think I ask myself, and I encourage people to ask yourself, what would nature do? How
Yeah.
would nature grow? So and so you want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of relate it as much to your space as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And again, too, I like the idea of talking about growing a little more intensely too, because again, that's a way we're maximizing our space. Is like you said, we got to break from the idea that we're not growing in ground like in ground gardeners get to do. We got to look at things just a little bit differently as more container gardens that
Yeah.
we have. And also too the idea of rotation, not necessarily crop rotation as far as putting things in different spots, but making sure that you're on top of making sure that you're growing, the next thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? so that you've got
Seasonally,
things
yeah.
constantly growing in your garden space too. That's another great way to be maximizing a small space garden too.
Exactly right. So I think the way to really maximize your space is to think seasonally. So you have spring,
Mhm.
summer, fall, and the crops that are growing in spring, they might overlap a little bit with the crops that
Yeah.
are growing in summer. So you have quick maturing crops that you plant in spring, and when those come out, your summer veggies go in. And say if you're planting things like carrots or onions in spring, and they get done say by July, then when those come out, you're thinking, you know what, you're going to replace them with fall crops. So constantly thinking in terms of what are you going to grow next. And even if you do have something that doesn't grow, not to be disappointed, but always have seeds on hand, or go to your garden center, get some plants, and plant something else in its space. I think life is too short to live with a garden that isn't as beautiful or isn't producing for you a plant. So
Yes.
don't think twice. If something isn't working, take it out and put something else in its place, and that's when
Exactly.
learning really happens. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's again too, because you just want to keep things growing. And if you only got so much space, you don't want a space just sitting there doing nothing, or like you said, growing something that just isn't working out. And
Yeah,
you might be
yeah.
better off
Food is
getting
gold.
something else in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Exactly. Let's see. I think Jay's pointing out that I missed Bohemian Herbology must have asked earlier. Could you share any edible ornamental plant recommendations you might typically give?
So some of my
Ed,
favorite ones, yeah. So
okay.
Jay, some of my favorite edible ornamental plants, I would say for spring season are violas and pansies. Those are edible, and I know my daughter loves to bake, so I'm always growing all these different varieties of violas because you
Yeah.
can use them, on top of your cupcakes, or to decorate your pastries and your cakes, or also, on an avocado toast or a salad, and it
Mm.
looks gorgeous. So I love always, pansies and violas for the spring.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have calendula, medicinal flowering herbs like calendula, chamomile. Those are beautiful, but also, you can use those in dressing your food.
Yep.
Chive blossoms make the most amazing chive blossom vinaigrette.
Yeah.
So
Ah, mm.
they look gorgeous, and it gives your vinegar a beautiful purple, color, a lilac color almost. It has this mild onion flavor. You can sprinkle the flowers from your chive blossoms onto your pasta, Alfredo, whatever sauce that you're making, and it tastes delicious. And one of my favorite ones that I grew last year was the blue butterfly peas. And you have to grow them,
Mhm.
but it makes this color changing tea, which
Yes.
is amazing. So you have the flowers of the blue butterfly peas, you harvest them, you can dry them or have them fresh, put in some warm water. And the moment you squeeze some lemon juice, it changes color from blue to purple. It's gorgeous, absolutely stunning. So those are some good examples.
Yeah, that blue would just be something else. Yeah, it just sounds great. And again, too, bringing that color, that vibrancy to the garden, but also having things that you can use in your dishes and the food that you're eating as well, too, is really great as well. So that way, again, also talk about maximizing your space. You want to have cool looking, nice ornamental things in your garden, but you also don't want to have something that you can't use,
Yeah.
if you're trying to maximize your space, right?
Absolutely. So I'm always thinking herbs, edible flowers for beauty, and to attract the pollinators too. Yeah, it's a big
Oh
plus.
yeah, exactly. Got to get the pollinators in your garden as well too. And again, a lot of those herbs are great for that sort of stuff. And definitely. So let's see here. Next question for you. So what you've got your garden growing. You've been you were, and I'm not sure again which came first or what, but how did you get yourself started sharing on Instagram? And and then what was that kind of? I know you said you haven't been gardening for very long, so you haven't had your Instagram for very long, and you got a really great popular Instagram. So tell us a little bit about that, how getting that started, and then it turning into this kind of thing. I mean.
It's so interesting. But in 2019 December,
Yeah.
I got selected by Burpee Home Gardens by Burpee,
Okay.
and they sent me an email where I got selected as one of their 2020 Gardeners of the Year.
Oh,
And
wow.
someone who I knew on Instagram, I have never met her, not to date, but
Yeah.
she nominated me, a friend of mine on Instagram, she
Mm.
nominated me for this, Burpee's Gardener of the Year
Yeah.
category. And, before that, I think I had about 250 followers or maybe 300 followers on my Instagram, which is
Right.
just really my friends and family. I was posting about my gym routine. I was posting about my healthy, meal
Yeah. Yeah.
planning, my kids, and, just random stuff, and here and there some gardening things as well. But I wasn't doing, serious posting about gardening at that time up until, 2019. And she nominated me. Burpee sends me a
Yeah.
message. They selected me as a 2020 Gardener of the Year. And they were like, Resh, we're going to send you new varieties to try out in your garden
Oh,
before
wow.
anybody else gets to do it
Yeah.
in spring of 2020. And I was like just stunned. And, sometimes in life, I think it takes somebody else seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself. And I think by Burpee saying this and recognizing me in this way, I thought,
Yeah.
maybe I need to take this more seriously, this whole
Yeah.
gardening. And I haven't been noticing that about myself. And so that gave me this boost of confidence to take things seriously. And then from that time onwards, I started posting seriously about my gardening content. And so I got serious about that. And then, of course, COVID happened.
Hmm.
And so everybody was, I think they stayed
Yeah.
at home, they took to gardening and things like that. And so my account kind of, took off from there. I remember celebrating in about 2020 or 2021, like having 5,000 followers. And I was so
Yeah.
excited. Oh my God, I have 5,000 followers. Like 5,000 people want to actually listen to what I have to say about gardening. I
I
couldn't
know.
believe. And so that kind of took on a life of its own. And when 2020 happened, and so many people kept asking me the same gardening questions over and over again, I thought that maybe there was something there. And so I started
Yeah.
my company, 100 Tomatoes, as well, because there was this need and I was seeing this demand out there. And so it
Yeah.
kind of go from there. And now I've been consistently posting on Instagram about gardening tips and content, and sharing all this, stuff. And yeah, I'm so grateful for everybody that's following me over there. Really,
Yeah, yeah.
unbelievable.
I love these type of gardening stories, and especially you get to hear a lot. And we've had several guests here on the show too that, are kind of a similar experience as, as they were discovering gardening and growing, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and next thing you know, people everywhere are paying attention to gardening and wanting to learn more about it. And so that really just built up a lot of like just organic audiences for a lot
Yes.
of people out there who are just, just sharing, just basically sharing their backyard gardens. And next thing you know, they're,
Yeah.
they're a go-to person, for a gardening, content and all of that too. And I just love that. I think it's great, you
Thank
know.
you.
And yeah, and again too, lots of great stuff. I've actually been following you for the last couple of years now. I discovered you. I said that I saw you on the garden party as I was introducing you, which I did too. I thought that was really great that you got to go over there and be on their podcast. I did watch that one there, but I did discover you through a guest we had on the show. We've had her on several times. It's Ashley Thomas, the mocha gardener, and she wrote a book called How to Become a Gardener. And
Yeah.
you were a contributor in that book.
It
And,
is
s- and
it's
so
such a
I
small world.
gotta check this out. If Ashley's, and I like Ashley, what she's writing here. She says this is someone I need to check out. So that's how I
Ashley is
discovered
such
her.
a she is such a sweetheart and such a good friend. I think
Yeah,
we just spoke over the phone probably a week or 2 weeks ago as well.
yeah,
And I have to say a big thank you to her
yeah,
that she introduced me. I wrote a little piece in her book, How to Become a Gardener,
yeah,
and she introduced me to the publishers, which helped me secure this book deal.
yeah.
And so, like I said, it's a small
Isn't it great?
world,
And how
and
it all works out like
we
that.
help each other out, and
Yeah,
that's really that's life, right?
it
That's how it
is.
is. Yeah.
It really is the beauty of, community and what we're able to do as we're, just sharing and something that we just have an incredible mutual passion for, and that's gardening and growing our own food. And again, for us who here on the show today, like Paul earlier,
Exactly.
we're small space gardeners just trying to grow what we can in the spaces that we have, so to be able to share that with others and to have this sort of thing build out of it in this community that comes from it is great. And then leading to things like where you get to write, and I'm sure you never thought about that either as you were getting started with those first tomatoes you were growing, that someday I'm going to publish a book on growing and gardening, right?
No, I never thought of that. But, I'm a very positive thinker, and I don't like to put anything in a negative light. I think anytime you think something, you have to always aspire to and dream, because, I
Yeah,
mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? Nobody can stop you from dreaming as big as you want, right? And that's when,
exactly.
when you can dream that big and you feel like you want something that you feel might be hard, or you aspire for something that's really out there.
Yeah,
That's when you try, subconsciously start working towards those goals. So I just say, stay positive, dream big. There's no such thing as a brown thumb. It's just about getting more experience and connecting with the right people, and just keep dreaming. That's how
yeah,
you reach your goals.
yeah. I have a little frame right over here just off camera that says dream big, and
I love it.
it's got my company little logo in it, you know what I mean? So that I can constantly remind myself that, yeah, that, these may be dreams and things like that, but they're attainable
Yes.
if we keep our minds positive and keep working in those directions, and just do the things that we love and enjoy. And again too, it's a fun discovery that we find within ourselves, and it's so great that it's come out of this thing, that I started years ago, just growing some food in these spaces and stuff, and have found, just all of these just amazing things
Yeah.
from gardening in general.
Yeah, I think gardening is similar to, for those people who work out or exercise or something like that. I just think what's important is to have some sort of positive action that you take every day towards your goals. And even when you have a small win, like you have your first cherry tomato or your first radish, or you run that first mile, for example, those are
Yeah,
wins that we subconsciously understand that are stacking up in our favor. And those boost your confidence, make you feel like you can do it, you can grow a larger tomato, you can grow more, you can run a longer distance, or you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve. And so the small wins, even with something as small as gardening, they really stack up and boost your confidence, and really help you change the trajectory of your life. And I know for myself, starting out from where I was to where I am today, I mean, I would not have dreamed of writing a book, or having a business in gardening and things like that. But it is really about dreaming big and just asking yourself, what do I need to do to make that happen? What does
yeah,
it? What needs to happen in order to grow that big tomato, or to achieve, write that book, or to achieve what it is that you want? What do I need to do? So I keep asking
yeah.
those questions, and I know it sounds like a TED talk right now, but I think
No,
mindset
that
is everything. Even when it comes to gardening, you should not take anything as a failure. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I think, TED Talk or not, but I think you're a prime example and just such, great inspiration to others, to learn about how your garden story is. I think that's what it's great about, having you here on this show and to be able to talk about this is learning and discovering these sort of things. Is, we can go to, Resh Gala on Instagram and see all of these wonderful photography and different videos and things that you're putting out there, but to hear that story of yours and how this has all come about is very inspiring. Because it does show people that, hey, you know what, you could start right now, and 7 years later be in some completely different part of your life you would never even completely imagine. And it's pretty much similar to me. I'm 8 years into my channel and doing things as well too. And again, if you would have told me I'd be hosting a weekend gardening talk show and would have this fun community around me where I've got to have all these awesome conversations with some of these amazing gardeners who I've followed for years. I mean, the people I've had on this show, I can't believe it. I was talking with our guest earlier too, before the show, just like, it just blows my mind when I think about, what we've been able to achieve here on this show, as far as the conversations and the people we've been able to have on, like yourself, in sharing their garden stories and all of that. And I just, again, yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, just persevering through, a lot of those early, you know, successes and unsuccesses, I guess you would say, without trying to avoid the word failures, but the unsuccesses and things we
Learning
learned.
experiences.
The learning experiences, exactly. And then
Yeah.
where it can take us, because
Yeah.
and again too, it doesn't necessarily just have to be gardening either. I kind of talked at the beginning of the show too, I'm wearing my baseball jersey, I got
Yeah.
other things I'm really into and I really love, and all that sort of stuff. And and there's things that we find, and no matter where we find a love or a passion or something like
Yes.
that, it's those sort of things I think we should concentrate on and move in those directions, and find ways for us to be able to find more enjoyment in our lives. And like I said, gardening is just a great place when it comes down to it, just to find all of that, all of the above.
Absolutely. And I'm so proud of you too, and your journey as well. I'm really,
Oh,
really proud of you.
yeah, thank you, appreciate that. And yeah, exactly. And let's talk real quick here before, we got a few more minutes here. Let's talk a little bit more about your book. Tell me just a little bit more about what we get in this really great book of yours. We love talking about books around here on Let's Get Growing too.
Thank you. So, my book is called Vegetable Gardening Made Easy, and it has all the tips and tricks in the most easy, simple way for you to be able to have a successful garden. And there are chapters on everything from seed starting and grow lights, that might overwhelm or confuse a beginner gardener. And it also has things like how to maximize the production from your garden, how to design and create a beautiful garden, like what I do for my clients as well, that you've seen in my portfolio. We have tips, we have lots of recipes in there as well, like how to make pickled radishes, or a Swiss chard, and Swiss chard and goat cheese flatbread, for example.
Oh, okay. There you
Using
go.
produce to to make something delicious in the kitchen. And then of course I have a chapter, a couple of chapters on season extension, because living in New Jersey in zone 7A, we get the snow and the cold single digit weather as well. So how to extend your growing season using simple techniques, or putting your garden to bed, for example. And then on pages 36 and 37, which is really the most popular, I think, with the people who purchased my book, is a whole comprehensive seed sowing chart. So if
Oh,
you
okay.
know your frost date and you pick up your phone, the calendar on your phone, and you see, like, 8 weeks before, this is what you have
Right.
to start indoors, or, on such and such date, this is what you need to, plant outside. So there's a whole chart on that, which is super helpful, I would say. So for those who are looking for seed starting, I have something
Yes.
like this right here.
Oh,
I don't know
that's
if you can see
perfect.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you give everybody a good range of when, and when's the best time to get those
So it's
going and all that.
not even a range, it's like the exact dates.
Oh,
So the
just do
more you
it
have
today.
exactly. So you know that you can, yeah, so you can, this is the date, mark it in your calendar that you're going to start the seeds for a tomato indoors, or a cucumber indoors, or this is when
Yeah.
you're going to plant your kale seedling outside
Mhm.
in your garden. For example, if it's radishes, this is when you're going to direct sow the seeds in your garden. So I
Yeah.
have all that marked out in just those two valuable pages. But
Yeah.
overall, the book is just filled with lots of tips and tricks to maximize production from your garden, and to basically grow a beautiful garden, vegetable garden.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Good tips and tricks are always helpful when it comes to growing in our garden spaces. But I like the idea of the chart there too. Also, because your chart, I'm sure, lots of annuals, and it's based on your last frost date. So you're
Yeah.
just kind of working back from your last frost
Yeah.
date, which is really a key date to be knowing if you're in your garden space, more
Yeah.
so than zone. A lot of people, they get caught up in zones. Zones are good to know. It's good to know what your zone is. But really, if we're growing vegetables and annual fruits and vegetables and things in our
Absolutely.
garden, it's our last frost date. So a chart that really hones in on that, shows you exactly when you're going to get things started and sowing your seeds. That's a really great asset to have. So that's a really great part of the book. And also too, some recipes and ways and to use the things that you get out of your garden. This is an important thing I think more people could include in their garden books as they write garden books, are things that they do and recipes and things and how they utilize some of those things they grow. I'm not the best cook out there, so it's good to hear from people who do know how to cook some things or have some great ideas about them, so I can try it myself out of the things that I'm growing in my garden too.
Yeah. This spring, if you're growing radishes, you have to check out my book and make that pickled radish recipe. I know it sounds crazy. Not everybody's fond of radishes, but the pickled radishes, especially if you put it on nachos or tacos or even in sandwiches and stuff, so delicious. So I always grow too many radishes just to make these pickles.
I love growing radishes are one of my favorite like multi-use crops though too. Is I love growing radishes, you know, just for the radishes themselves, like you said, just lots of different varieties, very tasty ones and all of that. But then I also like to grow them and let them seed out. So I'll let a couple of my really good ones grow to seed, because I don't know if you've used or the seed pods, and you harvest them like little green beans as young seed pods, and they're really delicious with a nice little light radish flavor to them all. And then you harvest a bunch of radish seed from some leftover pods that you got, and then you can grow some really great radish microgreens during the winter time as well too, right? I mean, so radishes have a lot of use through the one plant, right?
Yeah. So I do that with some of my carrots, though. I sow my carrot seeds heavily. I know people will probably, get scared when I say this, but I sow my carrot seeds really heavily, and then I don't thin them out when they're this teeny tiny things, which most people they come in and snip off or thin them out.
Right.
I let them grow those, the green tops, the leafy greens of the radishes. I let them grow almost 10 to 12 inches tall, like super tall. And that's when I come out and thin my carrots, because I make the most amazing carrot top pesto using the green carrots.
Oh,
So
wow.
delicious. So you
Is
actually
this
get
in your book too?
I think it's there, the carrot top pesto recipe. It is
Yeah.
so good.
Okay.
You have to try it, or just Google carrot top pesto, and very delicious. So I do
Yeah,
that as
that sounds amazing. That sounds great.
you.
Right on.
And the book, I know it's available on Amazon, of course, but also, at Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble,
Okay.
and bookshop.org as well, at Indigo. So it's available and in 5 countries as well. I'm so grateful that it got published.
Oh man, that's so amazing. It's such a great book. I'm gonna have to get me a copy of that and dig into that as well too. Lots and lots to talk about with and real quick, actually before you go, I did want to mention, because you did mention this before. So you just recently moved to a new place, right? So now you've got a whole new garden space. So let's talk about that a little bit before we let you go here, because we got an upcoming growing season and all of that that's growing. Tell us a little bit about this new garden space, some of your garden plans for it, and all of that, and things that you're going to share with everybody coming up.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting so much anxiety just talking about that, to be honest, because I didn't realize we moved to a new space. I have like so much of space where I can grow my food. However, I didn't realize that the government wants us to, approve of, I mean, they want to approve all these permits before we can, build a fence or get a greenhouse, things like that. And I didn't realize that. I thought, oh, I have a backyard, now I can just grow anything.
Right.
But New Jersey, we have a real deer problem. And so I need a fence that's over 6 feet tall. And so if I need a fence that's
they
over
can jump.
I need a permit from my local municipality. I have ordered a greenhouse because it's my passion to, grow seedlings. Like I said, I have that huge seed collection. So I have a greenhouse. However, I haven't gotten the permit yet for the greenhouse. So once I get the permit is when I can then start, building out my garden. And so it's I call it work in progress.
Work in progress, exactly, huh? But that's got to be
right?
But is it a much bigger space for you, this new space that you've got?
It is. And so I'm feeling a little bit, to be very honest, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, because when you have a small space, you know that this is all I got, this is what I can do right here in this area. When you have a big space, suddenly you get confused and overwhelmed because you're like, should I grow here? Should I grow there? Should I go this side? And how
Exactly,
big
huh?
should it be? And if you make it too big, then you feel, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. What am I going to, how am I going to do that? It's a lot of planning actually, but I think my desire is to have at least 12 raised beds so I can dedicate hopefully, 2 raised beds just for strawberries to grow it.
Yeah.
It's a perennial in New Jersey.
Gotta
Maybe
have
one
lots of
for
strawberries.
garlic, the stuff that, I can grow for storage as well, or like a
Yeah.
potato bed, things like that. And the rest, of course, we have all this companion planting and mixing in the veggies and flowers. But then there's a cost to that. So
Yeah.
it's a balance that I have to create. I know I want to grow everything, but
Exactly.
I think my husband was like, Resh, you need to first decide what is your budget.
Yeah.
Let's work backward from there about, what kind of garden you can have.
I don't want to work backward from what I have. I want to work forward from what I
I want to have
want.
everything. I want this. Yeah, I want exactly.
But it's really exciting to have a new space. I'm trying to, in a way, I don't have a new space, but now I've got new ownership, and so that allows me some new permissions to do some things that I've been wanting to do. So I'm kind of, trying to take my old space and look at it in a new way,
Okay.
so that I can kind of do some of that in sort of sense. But it's also awesome, like in a sense, like you're saying, to be able to move into a place in a space that offers you more opportunity to do
Yeah.
more stuff, even though you've learned and figured out how to handle a good small space, we always want more when it comes down to it, right?
The heart always wants more, always, right?
Always, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, and that can become troublesome for the heart of a gardener for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Right on. And so again, too, where people can primarily find you is on Instagram at Resh Gala. I'm sorry, I keep saying that, but there you also, though, like you said, you're on YouTube as well too,
Yes.
and other places too you find you.
Yes, on YouTube as well. And then I have my website. If anybody wants to see my portfolio and be inspired by some of the gardens that we are creating,
Yeah.
you can find me at www.reshgala.com.
Just that easy too, huh?
Yeah.
Just that easy. Amazing. Again, too, just really awesome. I'm really so glad that you came on the show and hung out with us today and shared with us your garden story and talked about this because again, like I said, it's really, really inspiring to hear from people who, have found this new passion and this great experience of gardening that that we all gush about, but to see someone like yourself who found it and then found this whole new life and this whole new experience and in everything out of it as well too, it's just kind of really cool to see how gardening can change some people's lives sometimes.
Absolutely. And gardening can change your life, and that's a fact. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to say a huge thank you to you for having
Yeah.
me. I'm so happy connected. So thank you. And thank you to
Yes.
everybody who's, commenting as well and who's, part of the show. So I really appreciate you all. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And like I say to everybody out there, find Rach's link right down below in the description there. Go and check out one of her more recent posts if you go over to Instagram. Although, again, like you said, you're on YouTube as well, too. You can find her there and go find a recent video or a post or something like that and leave her a comment and let her know that you saw her here on the Let's Get Growing show. And again, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing this great experience. And I really look forward to having you back on the show again too. Maybe we'll have to, and I was thinking about this as we were talking too, is I want to do some more of our garden roundtables on our Sunday show. So what we'll have to do maybe is plan a day where we can get you and Ashley together and get a conversation with the three of us. I would love that too. I love talking to Ashley. Talking to you today has been so fantastic. So I really look forward to being able to see you again. And again, too, and if you hold on a few minutes, I'm just going to finish up the show and I'll catch up with you in just a couple of minutes
Thank
as
you.
well, too. But thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Right on, right on. Again, find Resh in the description below and go leave her a comment. Thanks again. All right, all right, all right. Excellent. How wonderful is that? Amazing, amazing conversations today with both of our guests, both Paul from Guten Gardening earlier on the show, as well as Resh Gala. Just such fun conversations and really, really inspiring stories and lots of great information today too, talking about small space, urban gardening, and maximizing our gardening spaces. And again, just really, really great conversation. So again, thanks to our guests today for being here and being part of our growing conversation here on the Let's Get Growing show. Like I said, too, you definitely want to follow the links down below to our guests. And again, like I said, go leave them some comments. Let them know you saw them here on the show. I really, really appreciate you showing them some love for spending their time here this weekend and sharing with all of us. And yeah, so really great again to have our guests today. Also, too, we've had some really great guests on the show. Last week, we had on the show with us our good friend Nate Murray from Garden Like a Viking. We only did our Saturday show last week, so it was great to talk with Nate and catch up with him and hear about what he's got growing on in his upcoming garden. And as well, we got to catch up with David. Actually, we got to catch up with David's wife, Priscilla Burke. She's the one who filled in for David actually last minute in the conversation over there at the Fig Hunter, and they've got lots of great, cool, just amazing varieties of figs and everything too that we got to talk about last week on the show. So if you didn't get a chance to check out that show, you'll want to go back and check out those conversations as well too. Right on. Also, again, like I said, we are here both Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern here on the Urban Gardener channel, again, with all of our great, wonderful guests. So that means we'll be back here again tomorrow. The Sunday edition of the show is back. We weren't, I had to take last Sunday off, but we're back again for tomorrow's Sunday edition of the show. And we're going to have with us our good friends, Christopher Bransdal and Kang Starr. Christopher joining us from the mountains of Norway as he's getting his growing season going as well up there. And also he's got his new grow room and everything. So hopefully we'll get some more look at this new growing space that he has. And as well, we'll have our good friend Kang Starr back again. It's always good to get those guys together. These are like my original garden roundtable buddies from way back when we first started doing our live streams with guests and everything. And it's it'll be great to catch up with them as well too. Also want to mention too, on the third Sundays of the month, each month we have our Let's Get Growing monthly gardening book club with our good friend Mark Boucher Colbert, MBC. And just a big note on our next book club. Like I said, it's usually the third Sunday of the month, but it's actually going to be the second Sunday of this next month because it just so happens that the third Sunday is on Easter. So Mark, our co-host, had some plans, and we were lucky enough that the book selection this month is our good friend Scott Wilson. Master Gardener Scott Wilson just published his new book, Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. So that's our featured book for this month. And our good friend Scott Wilson always shows up with us and joins with us on the second Sunday of the month. And that would meant we were going to have him for 2 weeks in a row for both our second Sunday Q&A discussion and our book club. So that easily meant that we could just switch those out and have our good friend Scott join us for the book club on the second Sunday and then the Q&A for the third Sunday. So we're just flipping that around, but that's a big note for this next month and our book club. But really looking forward to hanging out with Scott Wilson for 2 weeks in a row this next month. How lucky are we? Right on. And next Saturday on the show, we will have joining with us Mike McGrath from Growing with Mike McGrath, PBS gardener, as well as a really great radio show and radio host. I love talking to our radio hosts and radio gardeners. So we'll have a really great conversation with Mike next week on the show. So definitely be sure to join with us for those conversations as well too. So again, thank you everybody for being here with us on the show. It was great to have you all here with us, and again, our guests here on the show as well too. And if you can, before you all take off and head out here, be sure, like I say, hit that like button, click the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams here on the Urban Gardener, and as well be sure to share with all of your friends. Follow the links down in the descriptions for our guests, and also to go visit our sponsor Ivy Organics at ivyorganics.com. Use the promo code GROW10 GROW10 in the shop and save 10% off. Go support our sponsor. It's a great way to support our show. And again, to everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's really great to have you here, and I look forward to talking to you all on the show tomorrow. We'll be back again here, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Let's Get Growing show. We'll see you all tomorrow.